I've made over six figures in online business in my early 20s. And one thing that I've noticed is some of the worst financial mistakes aren't even made by people who are making less money. It's those with high income professions. Just because you earn more doesn't automatically mean that you're smarter with your money. In fact, a lot of times, often it makes people even more careless. Number one, treating income like wealth, right? Now, a lot of times, right, when people start to gain a high income, what happens? They look at 100K, 200K salary, and they look at it as it's a check to use whatever they want with it, right? They go buy, the latest clothes, all of these different things, right? All of these shiny objects just because they have the money. And a lot of times even people with high income end up living paycheck to paycheck, which is insane, right? And just because you have a high salary does not automatically mean you're wealthy. Your savings could literally even look worse than someone who's making less money, but it's really about the financial habits that you do have. So it's not so much about how much you make, it's how much you keep, and honestly, a lot of the habits and even automation that you have in place to keep and preserve that wealth, right? Because a lot of people just think a big paycheck is, automatic financial security, which it's not, right? You could get fired, lose your job any day. And what happens is if you keep having super high expenses, you lose the job, man, what's going to happen? You're going to be in a tough situation, right? Where you're going to have a lot of stress and overhead that you're just going to have to figure out how to pay, right? And without assets, buying things that put money into your pocket, and if you just keep buying more and more liabilities, it's going to be a tough time for sure. And then what happens? The income disappears and you are left in a tough situation. Number two, over leveraging debt, right? So if you're earning a high income, right, a lot of times you're able to get, higher credit limits, right? You can get bigger loans, all of these things that, unfortunately, when we really think about it, the majority of people are not making smart decisions with, the debt that they are taking out. So if you're taking out, you have a high income and you're able to take out a lot of money, sometimes that can lead to even worse financial decisions to where you're going into unnecessary debt, right? Credit cards is one of the biggest problems Americans have in general, right? Spending, splurging on things that they don't need. And a lot of times with more power, they say with more power comes more responsibility. So if someone has such, power to take out a certain amount of money, you have to ensure that you're making smart financial decisions with that. Could be buying a house, maybe buying an asset, whatever it is. But just because you are able to accumulate debt, it does not automatically transition to wealth. And even if you invest in an asset, again, that doesn't mean that it's going to be able to be profitable as well. And if you have, correct financial systems in place, hopefully you'll be able to save and pay off that debt so that your interest rate is relatively low. But you can easily dig yourself into a hole by just having and really buying things that you can't really afford, but you're able to take out so much money. Number three, the luxury car trap. So when people think of the American dream, right, a lot of times you think of a car, a house, with a picket fence, a family, all of those things, right? And one thing that people love to do is go buy expensive cars. Now, I'm not telling you to not buy anything, right? You need to be smart with your finances and allocate. Yes, there's always money for splurging on things that actually is important to you. But a lot of times people will keep upgrading, buying these luxury cars with, it could be the fanciest technology in them when it literally gets you from point A to B just like the older models, right? And again, it's that lifestyle creep to where you're making more money. You say, all right, I'm going to go buy this car. But again, a lot of times it puts people in worse financial positions, especially if you're living paycheck to paycheck, because, man, debt has no limit to it, right? It doesn't matter how much money you're actually making. It's about those financial decisions that you make on a day-to-day, weekly, and monthly basis, right? So that's a huge problem. And of course, car payments, insurance, depreciation, because most cars do end up depreciating. So you end up losing money on your investment, which is crazy to think, right? And you're obviously, if you have a loan, you're paying even more money than the car is actually worth at the time, right? You don't own the car, especially if you have a loan. The car basically owns you because you're paying monthly and the banks own you because if you're not able to pay on that, what are they going to do? They're going to come and start taking your assets, right? And millionaires know cars can be liabilities, again, but it's really about your financial position and how smart you are with your decision making. Now, if you want to escape relying on paycheck to paycheck, start building income streams for yourself. Click the link down below and get my YouTube course where we talk about growing on YouTube and making money so that you don't have to rely on paycheck to paycheck, but you can have an income stream that actually helps you build real wealth where you can work from wherever you want. Number 4, ignoring taxes. Sheesh, man. If you guys don't know this by now, ignoring taxes is one of the biggest problems people could run into, right? Now let's think about it. How many times have you heard about these different celebrities, right, that owe millions of dollars in taxes, right? It's because that they're not doing the small things correctly, right? And of course, if you're an entrepreneur, how you file taxes change, but not accounting for, okay, I might have to pay taxes at the end of the year, when April comes around. That's a huge problem because if you don't have enough money to pay taxes, that's going to add even more stress to your financial situation, right? And for high earners, your biggest expense, and for most people in general, it's not even renting or your home or any of that. It's really taxes, which is crazy too. People don't think about it all the time because, you don't always see it right away, but it's something that creeps up at the end of the year, which is kind of crazy. And then of course, the more that they make, right, it gets cut in half because a lot of times it's 50% is the amount that they will say you owe. And not having a plan for it is not a good idea at all. Now, wealthy people treat taxes, in terms of having a strategy, right? How can I pay less taxes and keep more of the money that I do have? So it's not about how much money you make, it's about how much you end up keeping. And number 5, no real wealth plan. Outsourcing without understanding. Right now, of course, when someone is making such a high income, a lot of times they might hire a financial advisor or these other people to do their investing for them. But if you're not paying attention to what these people are doing and at least doing your own homework and your own research, you could literally get finessed out of all your money, right? And especially if you're signing documents that you're not having people read. I mean, how many times do you hear where people get millions of dollars stolen from them because they're trusting people, it might be friends of friends, family members, whatever, that are kind of advising them, but then they put these different clauses and they're stealing money from you and you literally don't even know it. Right? So having that firm foundation, at least in yourself initially, and then being able to go out and hire someone is super vital, right? Having an actual vision and idea of, how you want to build that wealth and where things are going, what the numbers actually look like, right? And of course, fees, poor planning, and bad advice are equation for disaster. So you have to pay attention, right? You can't just let things happen without you actually having control over what's going on, right? And that wealth, that will get you one step closer to building wealth. Now, if you enjoy learning about money, finance, and wealth, click this video on the screen. You won't want to miss it.